What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So if you follow basketball at all, you're probably aware that the NBA in-season tournament is happening right now. The semifinals are going on as I film this right now, and they have obviously been a massive success for the NBA. Viewership is up like 40% compared to November games last year versus November games this year that are in-season tournaments. So clearly something has worked. I know the NBA Cup doesn't really matter much, but at least in terms of boosting viewership, boosting their eventual TV deal, it's been a success, and as a result, I think the NHL should do something like this, because although, again, the Stanley Cup is really all that matters, something like this would be fun, would spice up November and December NHL games that right now are just don't really have that much stakes, it seems, for the most part. So I wanted to propose an NHL in-season tournament format right now and go through it, break it down. It's not going to be the exact same as the NBA in-season tournament. That would be lame as hell. So without further ado, let's dive into it. First off, the format, like with the NBA, these games will count towards the NHL regular season. All of the group stage games, the quarterfinals, the semifinals, championship will not, like with the NBA. So you'll have this kind of flex scheduling. The NBA clearly can make it work, so the NHL shouldn't have that much of a problem doing these. So the quarterfinal teams, semifinal teams, their matchups getting adjusted later in the regular season. You can make it happen. NHL employs plenty of schedule makers. They can do that stuff. And yeah, obviously, I think that's a massive part of the in-season tournament. Have it count towards the regular season. Don't have it just be this completely different thing like in European English football, like the FA Cup. Have it count towards the regular season. Now, in terms of how you would group these teams, it's definitely going to be different because the NBA obviously has 30 teams. The NHL has 32 teams. So instead of 6 groups of 5 like the NBA did, I would do 8 groups of 4, and then the winner of each group would advance to the quarterfinals, and I would have it be Eastern Conference teams. You'll see in the NBA one, they do the East and the West. You're obviously going to do this. You're not going to have Vancouver and Florida in the same group traveling, just adding that travel to an in-season tournament. It would be East and West, and it would be chosen based on like different tiers of teams. You have it equally balanced, like a group, like a tier A, tier B, tier C, and then 1 in each. So when looking at that, I think you do those 8 groups, 4 in each conference, and then the winner of each conference plays each other. It stays East and West, and it's a home game for whoever has the better record in the group stages. And then the final, we're not going to do like the Las Vegas, just because I don't think there's a certain city that will, unless their team is playing, it would be a sellout. Vegas is different. They don't have an NBA team. Vegas is a spectacle. They're going to sell plenty of tickets for the semifinals and the championships. I think in the NHL model, you'd have to keep it as home games. So you just do that, whoever has the best record in the group stage, in the best goal differential in the group stage, because that's a big thing with the NBA. You saw when teams were up 30, they were still running it up at the end because of that point differential. The same thing will happen in the NHL with the goal differential. So I think that format, it does make a lot of sense. And in terms of what the players will be wearing, I think it'd be a fun idea to have different in-season alternate uniforms, kind of just make it special. I know people complain about too many uniforms. You don't have to buy them. Whatever, we're not going to make the rink like the NBA courts, make them disgusting, but I think something like a different uniform could be cool to kind of differentiate this compared to just a regular season game. Now, in terms of what the player rewards would look like, I don't think you can offer $500K like you are with the NBA right now, because the NHL doesn't make as much money, and there's also more players on each team in the NHL compared to the NBA. But I do think something like $200,000, maybe $250,000 for the winner each player on the winning team gets. I think that's a sizable amount. You look at it, yes, the Connor McDavid making 12.5, that's chump change, but there's always a lot of guys on league minimums, ELCs, making under $2 million. $200K isn't anything to sneeze up, especially if you're an AHLer that gets the call up for this tournament. You're making like $100K in the AHL, and then you get called up for an in-season tournament, you make $200K. I know people are going to make fun of that amount because of the star players, but when looking at the other players, $200K it's a decent amount of money, man. Not everybody in the NHL is making even more than I think probably over half the NHL is making less than $3 million. So $200K is a pretty decent amount. Now, when looking from a team perspective, the NBA in-season tournament, right now, there's no real reward for the team to win it. Obviously, the players individually get the $500K, but it's not like the team gets an automatic playoff berth or a draft pick. I would like to change that, but you got to hear me out. I'm not saying automatic playoffs. I want either a draft pick or you get an automatic play-in. So either if you make the playoffs safely, you get the 50th overall pick in the upcoming NHL draft that following year. If you make it because you don't need to make the playoffs, you automatically have a playoff spot. But if you're out of a playoff spot by the end of the season and you do win the in-season tournament, I am proposing that you get a one-game play-in. You play whatever the 8 seed is in your conference for a chance to go to the playoffs. I think that would be cool. You introduce this play-in. Most teams that win the in-season tournament probably will make the playoffs. Obviously, stuff can happen when you only have 3 games in the first stage, and then you just need to win 3 games. You basically need to win 6 games in a row to win the tournament. But I think getting that option to potentially play in a play-in game would be exciting because it would reward teams for winning this either through that draft pick at 50th overall or getting that play-in shot. Imagine some team goes on a run and then they just barely miss the playoffs at the end of the season, but they have that in-season tournament play-in qualifier. You get to exercise that. You set aside 3 days before the playoffs for that potential to happen. I think it would be really cool. And I'm against giving them an automatic playoff bid. I think that's stupid. I've heard that a lot because, again, if one of the worst teams in the entire NHL somehow makes the playoff, somehow wins the in-season tournament and then goes on to make the playoffs, I'd be pissed as hell as if that happens. But if they had a play-in game and they played the 8 seed and a bad team that wins the in-season tournament somehow beats that 8 seed, I don't have that much sympathy for the 8 seed. If they get the chance to play for it, I think that would be cool. So either the 50th overall, if at the end of the season you're already in the playoffs, or a 1-game 8 versus 9 to potentially make the playoffs. That would be it from a team perspective. So overall, let me run it down. 8 groups of 4, different jerseys, $200 to $250K for every player on the winning team. You either get the 50th overall pick if your team does make the playoffs that season, and if they miss, you get a 1-game 8v9 play-in tournament. I think there already should be just a play-in tournament in general for the NHL. That's a different video, but that is my proposed NBA or NHL in-season tournament. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? I think the NHL is eventually going to do this. I wouldn't think next season because they got to kind of plan it out. Maybe they can get it done, but they're going to copy the NBA because the NBA exploding growth all the time. NHL would be smart to kind of copy one of these things. They shouldn't copy everything from the NBA. I'm not saying that, but let me know in the comments what do you think about it, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.